All right, thank you. Welcome everyone to Brookgreen U. This is our second virtual program, Songbirds of the Grand Strand, and I'm happy to introduce Diane DuLoft of Wild Birds Unlimited. And she would like to tell you more about the winter comforts that you can offer to your wild birds to help them get through till spring. So I hope you enjoyed the program, and we'll ask Diane questions afterwards. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Good morning. This is Diane DuLoft with Wild Birds Unlimited. I want to thank Brookgreen Gardens for the opportunity to share with you one of my passions, which is feeding and watching the birds. February is National Bird Feeding Month. I think every month should be bird feeding. But we're going to go over some of the benefits of the birds, what they actually do for us, the foods that they eat, the types of feeders that the different types of birds will go to readily, and an initiative that we're working on this year called Save the Songbirds. Benefits of birds. Number one, they do an awful lot of pollinating. We know that they pollinate the flowers, but they also pollinate a lot of our fruit trees. So without them, we would have a lot less apples and a lot fewer plums. They do a lot of pest control for us because they do eat, they're ferocious bug eaters, most of them. There's just a couple that are vegetarians. Everyone else will eat bugs. They do a lot of weed control because they eat the seeds off of a lot of the weeds that are growing, thus controlling a lot of the weeds for us out of our yards. They do alert us to environmental changes. If there are a lot of sick birds or birds that have been found dead in a certain area, environmentalists will come out and start investigating what could possibly be the cause, if it's some kind of pollutant or contaminant or water issues, and then correct it so that all of us will thrive in that area. They provide human stress relief and joy. If you've ever watched the birds, and you can just feel yourself relaxing, and it's so exciting to see families come with their young ones to your feeders. And they also stimulate tourism. I'm sure at Brookgreen it's just as true as it is over at Huntington Beach State Park, where a lot of people will plan their vacations around when the painted buntings will arrive. Foods that the bird eats. Some of this is not as pleasant as we'd like. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of insects. They eat a lot of seeds, tree nuts, peanuts, fruit. They eat both fresh as well as dried. Obviously, some drink nectar. If it's not out of the flower, it may be tree sap, and then again out of the feeders that we provide. Cracked corn, suet, fish. Eagle and osprey obviously are going after the fish particularly. And then dead animals, which is the least of my favorites. But the vultures actually do a good job for us of being nature's garbage collectors because they keep the animal or the dead animals off the sides of the road, and thus less diseases spread. We don't have any live insects here, but a product that's readily available in the area are dried mealworms. They're a very good substitute for the insects if they're not available, such as in the wintertime. They will be eaten also in the spring, summer, and fall when there are more bugs available in nature, but it's a nice supplement. And birds will only use our feeders for about 20% of their diet. The rest of it they find in nature. Us keeping food outside for them will not keep them from migrating if they're a migratory bird, so that's nothing that you ever have to worry about. Sunflower chips and sunflower that is one of the most favorite foods for all of the birds. The black oil in the shell or the striped in the shell is difficult for a lot of the small birds to crack open, but sunflower chips they would readily go to. And we've got 3 blends at the store where we've got nothing but the chips or the hearts of the seed and nuts so that it's easy for the birds to consume. You can get the big birds as well as the little birds, and benefits there are you're not going to have a mess, and you're not going to have any weeds germinating under your feeders. Second most favorite are peanuts. Peanuts in the shell are a favorite of the woodpecker and the blue jay in particular, but the peanut splits, you suddenly get a much wider variety of birds coming to your feeder, like the tufted titmice, the nuthatches, the cardinals, woodpeckers obviously will go to the peanut splits as well. Niger, this is more of a specialty seed. The Niger that we get at the store is actually imported from Ethiopia. I personally preferred a Finch blend because the Finch love sunflower chips, and the Finch blend is chopped sunflower chips as well as Niger. Easy for them to get through the little screen of the Niger feeders. Safflower, this is a favorite of the cardinal. It also is a great problem solver because the blackbirds don't care for it, and neither do the squirrels. So people that have got squirrel or blackbird problems, we recommend the safflower because it will attract a lot of other birds, cardinals, tufted titmice, the nuthatches, chickadees, etc. White millet, this is a favorite of the painted buntings. People that feed painted buntings have seed tubes filled with nothing but white millet, and they put cages around it to protect the millet and the birds from some of the bigger birds that might be trying to enjoy as well, just to protect the painted buntings. Cracked corn, this is something that I do not use at my house. A lot of people use it to feed ducks, but there are some of the songbirds that like it, but there are more that I don't want to see than I do want to see, so I don't offer that. Suet, that is a fat product, and it's generally rendered beef suet, and then it's got other products such as mealworms or some chopped tree nuts or pecans or peanuts or something else in there that the birds are attracted to. The benefit of suet is because of the high fat content, the birds will get a higher caloric value out of the suet than they would out of the seed because they burn their calories just like we do, slowly. And the birds especially need this at night because with 14 hours of darkness, the birds don't eat at night, and therefore they've got to fuel up with that shorter time of daylight. Then, of course, nectar. All nectar is, as far as what we make, is it's sugar water. It's 4 parts water to 1 part sugar, and you boil it, or you can stick it in the microwave just to be sure that the sugar is dissolved. Let it cool off before you put it into your feeder and offer it to the birds. Different feeder types. The hopper, the seed tube, which comes in several varieties, the tray, cylinder feeders, suet feeders, nectar feeders, and those that are squirrel resistant. This is an example of a hopper feeder. All of ours are made out of recycled milk jugs, so we are saving the landfills from filling up with milk jugs, and we're feeding the birds. The benefit to these styles of hopper feeder is, if you'll notice, there's quite a bit of room in there between where the birds can perch and grab the food that they're interested in. It's suitable for the larger birds like the cardinals and the blue jays, as well as for the little guys like this chickadee. This is what we call our foundational feeder because it's a feeder that contains an awful lot of food, so you could fill it up, and if the other feeders run out, this most likely is going to still contain some food for the birds. So this is the one that should attract the widest variety of birds. So you want to have a good mix in there that's going to attract all of them. Seed tube feeders. The one on the left actually is a tube. It's an acrylic. This particular one's got 4 perches on it. It's easier for the small birds to fit on the perch and to get their little beaks and heads into the ports than it is the cardinal. So we quite often will recommend a tray to attach to the bottom because then the cardinal can not only stand on it, but also as seed falls out of the ports, the tray will catch the seed and birds will eat from there and keep it off the ground. For the seed tube feeders, we generally recommend, especially in this area with all the rain that we get, sometimes I feel like I'm living in the tropics. A weather guard, which goes on the top. That's on the top right. If I can find my mouse. Lost it. There it is. There's a weather guard. It helps protect whatever is in the tube, whether it's a Niger, a Finch blend, or peanuts. This is a peanut feeder. It's got rather big grates, but you can put peanut splits in it. And as I mentioned before, ours is a big hit at our house because we've got the woodpeckers, yellow-bellied sapsuckers, the cardinals, the two types of nuthatches, tufted titmice, chickadees, big feeder that attracts an awful lot of birds. Then there are the tray feeders. These are really designed for the birds that like to eat off the ground. So, for example, the mourning doves, the blue jays, even the cardinals are more comfortable on the ground. But you could add a wide variety of food, as is displayed in this example. You can put it on a pole system, as shown here, so that it'll fit right on a pole, or you can get a small hanging feeder. This one is a 9 by 9 inch, and all these trays are also made out of recycled plastics. So the color will color is running through the product, so it will hold up well in our weather and with our sunlight. Last for years. Maybe not everybody's aware of what a seed cylinder is, but it's a combination of different seeds, mealworms, fruit. Sometimes it's got suet nuggets in it, and they come in a cylinder. It looks like a big candle, and you want to be sure to keep it dry because these cylinders are held together with gelatin, and if they get wet, they do start to fall apart. The advantage to the seed cylinder is you get a longer look at the bird that's trying to obtain their little morsel because they have to work to get it off the cylinder. So that's one of the beauties of this. And it's also called the vacation feeder. So if you're going out of town for a long weekend or a week, you could put a cylinder feeder up and be sure that your birds would still have some food by the time you got back. Then we've got these cute little characters also that were a big hit over the holidays. I like this cylinder feeder because it's got a real wide roof, and then the bottom has got a seed tray, so it will catch the seed as it's starting to get chipped away. This one does not have a seed tray, but it does have perching branches, which is a nice feature. And the one on the far right is made out of the recycled milk jugs. The top lifts off easily, and there's a spindle on the inside that will hold the seed cylinder in place so the birds won't knock it off as they are eating. Different types of suet feeders. This particular one is for a single suet cake. It's made out of the recycled milk jugs. And you can see this prop down at the bottom. It's called a tail prop. And if you'll notice, the red-bellied woodpecker is hanging onto the grates of the suet feeder, but he's balancing with his tail, which is exactly what they do on the trees. So this is very comfortable for the woodpeckers. Smaller birds get on here, and they don't need the tail prop, obviously. They just get up on the screen and chow down. This is a smaller hanging suet feeder with a roof to try to help keep it dry. And this is the suet cylinder, which has got about 3 times as much suet in it as a single cake. Nectar feeders. A lot of the beautiful nectar feeders are really pretty and practical because so many of them drip or they don't have a spot for the birds to perch on. The one I'm showing actually does. I don't know if you can see this little hummer right over here is perching on a small perching branch, but so many of them don't. And because of that, this feeder is my favorite. The nectar is in the bowl on the bottom, and it does have a perching area for the birds. And then in the center is an ant mound, so that area can be filled with water to keep the ants out of the nectar. This feeder also is slanted down so that when it's raining, the rain isn't going to dilute the nectar, so it'll stay nice and strong for the hummingbirds. Here's an oriole, also a nectar feeder. Again, the nectar on the bottom, a spot on the top for them to perch, and then there's places to place jelly or dried mealworms or some oranges, which are their favorite fruits. And then we've got the squirrel-resistant feeders. I call them squirrel-resistant because squirrels are tenacious little acrobats that have got more time to think about how to get into your feeder than you do to keep them off. But these do come from the factory weighted for a squirrel, so that on this particular feeder will hold about 4 pounds of food. If a squirrel gets on this cardinal ring, the ports will close so that he or she cannot access the food. But a cardinal obviously can fit on here comfortably and eat. This is a different type of squirrel-resistant feeder, same principle. The weight of a squirrel gets on there, the ports close, and he can't access the food. The problem with this, similar to the seed tube without the tray, is it's difficult for the bigger birds to get on there and to enjoy whatever you're offering. There's another solution that many people go to if you've already got a seed tube feeder of some kind. We do have cages that fit right onto the seed tubes in 1.5 or 2 inch squares to keep the squirrels and or the big birds out. Bird feeder placement. This is quite important. You want to put the bird feeder where you can see the birds, because you might just want to feed them, but I want to see them as well. It should be 3 or more feet away from windows. This is to reduce window strikes where the birds injure or kill themselves. 10 feet away or more from shrubs, trees, and structures that the squirrels can jump from, and where the birds have a safe and easy access to the feeders, where it's easy for you to fill and clean the feeders, and give it a little bit of shelter from the weather. If you're in an area that's very windy, you might want to put it in a little area where there's a little less wind. We do have seasonally savvy food. Believe it or not, birds do have different nutritional needs in the spring and summer compared to fall and winter. In the spring, they should be high in protein and in calcium. The reason they need to have the high protein is all the birds will go through a molting process sometime throughout the spring or summer, and feathers are 90% protein. And the calcium is similar to pregnant, humans. They need the calcium to help for strong egg production. And then in the fall and summer, they still do need the high protein, but as I mentioned earlier, they need the high fat to help them have all the calories that they need to make it through the winter. We do have some problem-solving birds for folks that have got squirrel problems. We do have some hot pepper seeds and suet, and this is not just a matter of taking out a can of cayenne pepper and sprinkling it in your feeder, because it'll all just fall between the seeds. Our hot pepper seeds and the suet are soaked in hot pepper oil, and therefore it's running around and through the entire product. Therefore, the squirrels might try it, but they're not going to come back. They don't have as many taste buds. The birds don't have as many taste buds as the squirrels. So therefore, the squirrels, the raccoons, rodents, deer are not going to like the hot pepper, and the birds, they don't mind it at all. It doesn't bother their digestive system either. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the safflower is a less expensive way to go to deter the squirrels as well as the blackbirds. You can attract more birds to your yard by offering a variety of foods. If you offer just one thing, you're not going to get as many birds as if you offer 2 or 3 types. Have a clean source of water. We've had customers come in that say, I've moved to a condo or a place where I can't even have feeders. Well, put out a bird bath. You'll attract some birds. And they do need clean, fresh water to drink as well as to bathe in. Keep those feathers in top shape for flight. Nearby landing spots, if you don't have any trees or shrubs, plant some or get some plants in pots, anything like that, just so they've got a place to hide if a predator comes near. You can create a bird-friendly landscape with native plants, and I'm sure the folks at Brookgreen can help you with some suggestions on that. But native plants harbor a lot more of the birds, the insects that the birds eat, The native plants are also already adapted to our environment and our weather. They'll grow stronger. Just to give you an example, an imported tree from the Southeast Asia, the ginkgo, will only harbor 4 insects compared to a live oak, which will harbor over 525 different types of larvae, bugs, caterpillars, etc., that the birds will consume. Besides, your sanctuary is going to be much more beautiful because your plants are going to be thriving. The initiative that we're working on this year is called Save the Songbirds. A study was done between about 9 different ornithology schools or organizations, and they determined that we've lost nearly 30% of our songbirds since the 1970s, and there is a variety of reasons for this. Habitat loss. We all know about the construction that's going on and all the habitat that's lost. Cats. Feral cats is one problem, but pets is another problem. Even if they are well-fed pets, they still have an instinct to hunt. So we ask the people keep their cats inside or try to put it on a leash. I've had a couple of cats. I tried putting mine on a leash once. That didn't go well. Window strikes. It was thought for a long time that the window strikes were due to high rises, when in fact that is not the case. Over 50% of the window strikes are in our homes, and that's because the birds see the reflection of the trees and the foliage that are around us, and they think that they're flying into safety when they're actually flying into a window. And if they're not stunning themselves, they're killing themselves. So that's a big problem. Invasive species from both plants as well as the European starling and the English house sparrow. Climate change, which is impacting everything. Pesticides. Chemical pesticides are an issue for the birds because if they've got if they're eating a bug that's been involved in the pesticides, they're going to ingest that, and it's not going to be healthy for them. Some ideas of how we can help the birds flourish. Develop a backyard refuge for yourself and the birds, again, using native plants, a water source. Keep cats inside. Make your windows safer. If you need some ideas on how to do that, stop by the shop or give me a call. We'll give you some ideas depending on what your specific situation is. Avoid chemical pesticides. There are a lot of natural pesticides out there that you could use that aren't going to hurt the birds. Use less plastic and participate in citizen science. This is something that all of us can do. Bird counts, getting involved with Cornell University with their Merlin eBird program, getting involved with Audubon with their bird identification program. The ornithologists use the information that we put into those different applications that you can put on your iPhone. And they actually study the birds and understand what the populations are, if they're increasing or decreasing, where the birds are at, and try to alert environmentalists in the area to the changes to find out what's going on so that we can rectify that. I do have a food preference chart. I'm going to go through it real quick, but I've got it at the shop, and I've also sent it to Brookgreen, so if you want to stop by and pick up a copy, you can. And these are for birds on the east, because obviously our birds are going to be a little bit different than on the west. The oil sunflower, when I'm speaking to this, it is the seed in the shell. So you've got cardinals, chickadees, grosbeak. It'll also attract goldfinches, the grackle, nuthatches, downies, hairy and red-bellied woodpeckers. Then we've got the striped sunflower, pretty much the same family of birds. But if you notice the sunflower chips, now all of a sudden you're getting a lot more birds because, again, so many of them can't get the shells off of the sunflowers, so you're going to get the birds that liked it with the shell on as well as those that prefer it with the shell off if you go with the chips. Peanuts in the shell, preferred by the blue jay the tufted titmice and the woodpeckers, but again, you get a lot more birds if you get the shelled peanuts and or tree nuts. And by tree nuts, I mean pecans, walnuts, that type of thing. Safflower, again, preferred by the cardinal. Some other birds that will attract chickadees, nuthatches, tufted titmice. But again, the squirrels, blackbirds, they tend not to eat the safflower. White millet, again, preferred by the painted bunting, but the doves also love it. Some of the sparrows, brown thrasher, red-winged blackbird. Niger is preferred by the goldfinch, the pine siskin, and the redpoll. It'll also attract the house and the mourning finch, chickadees. Cracked corn, this is the one that I said I don't feed. Well, a pheasant is obviously a game bird, but it attracts doves, but it's also going to attract grackles and starlings, and I don't want those in my yard, so I'm not feeding cracked corn. There are other foods that are more attractive to a wider variety of birds that I want to see, so I'm going to use those products. The fruit, the robin and the mockingbird both enjoy the fruit, and that would be apples, bananas, oranges, but it will also attract the bluebird, the thrasher, catbird, flicker orioles, red-bellied woodpecker, and the yellow-rumped warbler. Suet, this really does attract a lot more birds than what even is listed here, but I've had pine warblers and I've had yellow-rumped warblers on our feeders eating the suet, as well as the nuthatches and the wrens, the chickadees, the tufted titmice, and a lot of the woodpeckers, and then again the yellow-bellied sapsucker. So suet really does provide you with a big variety of birds. Mealworms, again, these are the insect substitutes or supplements. This is what I use to attract the eastern bluebirds. Unfortunately, I also get a mockingbird that thinks that he or she owns the feeder, so he scares the bluebirds away. But the catbirds do enjoy it, the woodpeckers, the nuthatches, etc. Nectar, we all know about hummingbirds and orioles. And then the chickadees and the finch, I've also seen them on my feeders. I've never had the grosbeaks, mockingbirds, tanagers, or warblers, but I guess they also like the nectar, probably the tree sap. If anybody's got any questions, I did get a question that was forwarded to me from Brookgreen, from a gentleman who said we've had a pair of Baltimore Orioles visit our feeders multiple times daily for a month, leaving about a week ago. In the past, these birds have visited us rarely, usually briefly in the spring. Does the Grand Strand have a wintering population of Baltimore Orioles, or was this just an extended layover on their migration south? By the way, they totally ignored our jelly offerings, preferring mealworms and chunks of suet offered in the dish. We do, in fact, have Baltimore Orioles that winter in this area, and we've got several different neighborhoods where they tend to congregate from customers that I've heard of. They tend to return to the same spot year over year, and they're in this area now. They're going to be getting ready to go north in the next month or two, so they're here until February or March, and then they will go back up north where that is their breeding ground. So they'll be going home to breed, and then they'll be back down here in about October. So yes, we do have we do have them as summer or winter visitors all winter long. So keep your feeders out, and it sometimes takes a while to attract a Baltimore Oriole, but once they find your feeder, they will generally come back. So we're located up on Bypass 17 in Surfside Beach in the same shopping center as Bonefish Grill. Thank you.
All right, folks, we've already got some questions coming in. So I think Diane's going to unmute herself, and there she is.
I'm unmuted. Hello, good morning.
So we've already got 3 questions. Diane, Barbara Taylor asks, do you have instructions for making feeders from milk jugs?
I don't. I know that could probably go online and just find some do-it-yourself feeders from milk jugs. You're making your own out of milk jugs. I'm sure you could. Online, is what I would suggest.
Sharon Casey asks, we have winter hummingbirds. They're more timid than the summer hummers. I believe they're black-chinned. Has anyone else seen these?
If they're black-chinned, they're out of the area that they generally live in, because we've only got the ruby-throated hummingbird here. But it could be one that got lost in a storm. And they're probably less aggressive this time of the year because they're not nesting. When the birds are nesting, they're extremely aggressive.
We have two questions about painted buntings. Sharon asks, what is the season for painted buntings? And then Allison asks, how hard is it to attract painted buntings?
The painted buntings are generally here in early April, like the 9th or the 10th, according to one of our customers who's an expert at painted buntings. And they'll go back in generally mid to late October. And as far as attracting them, the only thing that I would suggest is you have seed tubes that are filled with nothing but millet. And again, be patient. Kind of like when you're trying to attract the Orioles. But if you've got white millet in a feeder, it will keep the painted buntings at least coming to your feeder while they're in town.
Super. What is, from Mike Carney, what's the best way to feed mealworms to the birds?
Well, if you've got some kind of a tray or a dish that can be covered to keep them dry, would be the best way to feed. I know that we do have mealworms in a couple of our blends, our specialty blends. So you could mix it in with your regular seed and put it in a seed tube feeder.
All
You
right.
could also sprinkle some on the ground. The ground feeders would enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. Teresa Grimes in the chat says she moved here a year ago and can't seem to get any birds. And she said, I live in the Bluffs. So do you have any ideas for her?
Well, I'm not sure where the Bluffs is. Number one question would be, are there any trees in the yard?
Yeah, it's in off the South Causeway of Pawleys Island, near the marsh.
Okay, so there probably are a lot of big trees. I would suggest just putting some feeders up that have got some high quality food. I'm not going to knock the competition, but a lot of times the big box stores have got food that who knows how old it is. Obviously it goes to a distribution center and it sits there for a while and then it gets put on the shelf. And I don't know how long it's sitting there. Ours is delivered every 2 weeks. So come up and try some of our food.
Okay.
I ordered stuff from Amazon. I saw that. Here again, we don't know how old it is. And as the seeds age, they do lose their oil, which loses the birds don't want it if it's all dried out and the oil's gone.
So it's not a good idea to buy a huge 10-pound bag and space it out for a year.
No, exactly. That's very true.
Vicki McCampbell asks, what is the earliest that a bluebird will nest in my box? I want to put a video camera in there, but not disturb possible nesting.
Well, you need to get that camera in there pretty darn quick because they'll start nesting in our area in mid-February. So get your camera up and operating because they'll be doing it soon. In fact, they're looking right now. They seem to be starting to pair up. Males are trying to flutter their wings and attract some females. And it's fun in this, late winter, early spring, because the male will basically show his potential mate various spots to put a nest, and he'll be showing off on top of a bluebird feeder, or bluebird house rather, encouraging her to go in and take a look. And she's the one, kind of like relationships with people. She's the one that chooses the house they're going to live in.
We have a question. What's the best time of year to put out hummingbird feeders?
I would put one out starting in early March, because I've had them here as early as mid-March. And then, as one of the other guests that already indicated, they've got them right now. And in fact, we've got a lot of customers that do have hummingbirds year round.
Another question from Mary Raina. What is bark butter?
Oh, it's a product that the founder of Wild Birds Unlimited developed. It comes in a few different formats. One, it's a little suet nugget that the birds can grab and take off with. Comes as spreadable form, so you could spread it on the side of a tree like the bark, and the birds will eat off of that. It's been documented, and the franchise won't document any birds that we claim are eating the bark butter products unless we take a picture of it. And there's been over 150 birds that like it.
And someone asks, do you sell the cameras that can go inside bluebird houses?
I don't, but I probably should find one or two. I currently don't have any, no.
Somebody just made a comment. Janet Woodward said predator birds such as herons and eagles are near our ponds, and when they fly over, we found moving the feeders closer to the mature trees gives them better cover. That's
Yes.
going to be over near over near Polly's Island near the marsh.
Right. Yeah. I would give them as much protection as possible from any of the predators. And that's a good idea, moving it closer to the trees. Protect the birds and also give them a quick place to hide and, yeah, basically hide from the predators.
Right. Linda Townsend says they've already had hummers and Sea Trail and Sunset Beach. She's put her nectar feeder out already.
Cool. Lucky you.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I can't attract hummers to my yard for some reason. I'm going to try again this year.
Flowers. Flowers will help. Put the feeder near the flowers.
There you go.
They're
Okay.
nectar producing, some tubular flowers.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Lauren, this is Vicki. A good choice of flowers to put out is the Brazilian sages, and they grow very well down here, and they are tubular flowers, and they just really attract in the hummingbirds.
Wonderful. Someone asked about, can you put food in a bluebird house to attract bluebirds?
No, you should never put food into a house. It should only go into some kind of feeder.
Gotcha. And then Teresa, I'm not sure, she said, do you keep the bluebird feeder empty? But
no, I keep it full.
yeah,
I want to see them.
that's right. I love the bluebirds when they come.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else have any more questions? I'm glad you all enjoyed it. We had a good group here today, almost 75 people.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
And
I
everyone,
enjoyed it.
I'm going to send you that food preference chart. I'm going to be emailing that out to everyone, a link to it where you can go to our website and download it. Thanks for coming.
And Lauren, can't people view this webinar on the YouTube channel?
Yes, I will be rendering the video and putting it up on YouTube as well.
All right, great. Well, thank you again, Diane, for coming and speaking to Brookgreen, and thank you everyone for your participation.
Thank you. Have a
Bye,
good day.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.